Hi everybody. Today we are going to continue talking about mitosis and some of the terms and things related to mitosis. So we left off the other day here talking about chromosome number. And we learned that each organism has a specific number of chromosomes in each cell. So for example, in a human, how many chromosomes are in a human cell? If you remember from before, that would be 46. And of course, 2 of those chromosomes are sex chromosomes. Those determine the sex of the individual. And the rest of the chromosomes are autosomes. So all the ones that are not the sex chromosomes are the autosomes. Now, chromosomes in humans are paired up. This is an important point, that chromosomes are paired. So we refer to pairs of chromosomes as homologous chromosomes. And these are chromosomes that are very, very similar but are not actually identical. So homologous chromosomes have genes for the same trait, but are not identical like sister chromatids. So this is a pair of homologous chromosomes. One comes from the father, the paternal side, and the other comes from the mother, the maternal side. Since these chromosomes are coming from 2 different places, they cannot be identical, right? The chromosomes you get from your mom and the chromosomes you get from your dad are going to be slightly different because your mom and your dad are different people. That's not the same as a sister chromatid, right? Remember, sister chromatids are clones. They are replications of DNA. They are exactly the same. A homologous pair is different. So a homologous pair might contain the same genes, for example. So let's say on the paternal chromosome, you've got a gene here, where I'm circling in red, and this gene is for brown eyes. On the maternal homologous pair, there's still going to be a gene there for eye color, but is that eye color gene going to be for brown eyes specifically? Maybe, but maybe not. It could be perhaps for blue eyes. So you have the same genes, but they're not necessarily identical sections of DNA, right? You could have the gene on the paternal homologous chromosome for being short, and on the maternal, you could have a gene for being tall. So it's still the same gene, but it's different variations of that trait. On the bottom of this picture, we have a homologous pair that is replicated. So each chromosome is made up of 2 sister chromatids that are identical, but these 2 things together are a homologous pair. So they are not identical. They're similar, but they're not identical. All right, so lecture check. 1, what is a homologous pair? And 2, where do the pairs come from? Take a moment and answer this question now. So first of all, what is a homologous pair? A homologous pair is a pair of chromosomes that are similar but not identical. And where does the pair come from? They come from each of your parents. So that is why they are not identical. This is what's called a karyotype. A karyotype is a picture of all of your chromosomes. So here, we paired up all of the homologous pairs, and we actually order them by height. So we start with the tallest is number 1, and then they get selectively shorter as we go down. So we see homologous pair number 1. Now it's kind of tricky when you look at this. It kind of looks like this is supposed to be the X shape. That's not actually what's happening. Each one of these, so that is one chromosome, and that is a totally separate chromosome. This is a homologous pair. So each one of these is its own chromosome. That doesn't show sister chromatids. The sister chromatids are so close together, you basically can't see them. You can't tell that they're 2 different things. So notice we have 22 pairs of autosomes all the way down to the bottom. These are your autosomes. 22 pairs, that's 44 chromosomes total. And then at the end, we have our 2 sex chromosomes. And the sex chromosomes can either be an X and an X, or an X and a Y. All right, what is the difference between homologous chromosomes and sister chromatids? Take a moment to answer this very important distinction. Okay, So when you answer that question, you should have seen that homologous chromosomes are pairs of different chromosomes that come from different parents. Similar, not identical. Sister chromatids are identical. So when your chromosome replicates, it makes a sister chromatid. So that is a clone of a chromosome that already exists. Okay, other terms that you should know. You should know about the types of cells. Cells with two sets of chromosomes, that's homologous pairs. So cells that have homologous pairs are called diploid. Think DI, die, for two. Diploid means pairs. We abbreviate diploid by writing 2N. 2N refers to diploid. That's our shorthand for diploid. So most of our cells have homologous pairs, and therefore most of our cells are diploid. So if you were to take a look at one of your skin cells, 46 chromosomes, that's 23 pairs. That's a diploid cell. What about your liver cells? Again, 46 chromosomes, that's 23 pairs. That's a diploid cell. Some of our cells, a few of them, only have one set of chromosomes that are not paired, so no homologous pairs. And that is referred to as a haploid. Think half the number. No pairs, that's half. The shorthand for haploid is just N. All right, so where would we find haploid cells? There's only a few places you would find haploid cells in the human body. That is the sex cells, the sperm or the egg cells. Sperm in a male, egg cells in females would be haploid, only one set of chromosomes. So we have, again, let's compare even more. We have diploid cells, 2N, and we have haploid cells, just N. Diploid cells are found in somatic cells. That's also known as body cells. So that's your liver, your stomach, your skin, your eye cells, etc. Most of your body cells have their chromosomes in pairs. Haploid cells, or N, are found in your gametes. That's your sex cells, and those are unpaired. So that is sperm or egg cells. And that's it. We don't have all these different examples like somatic cells, gametes. There's only two types. There's sperm cells and there's egg cells, and in humans, that's it. All right, here would be a visual difference. So here's haploid. So each one of these is a chromosome. And we have 3 chromosomes here. Right, we have 1 and 2 and 3. And those chromosomes don't appear to have a pair, do they? They're unpaired. Diploid, there are pairs, right? You can see that chromosome pair number 1 is a pair. They're similar, but not identical. Chromosome pair number 2, again, similar, but not identical. And then chromosome pair number 3, similar, but not identical. That's 6 chromosomes total for 3 pairs. So this would be a somatic cell. And this would be a gamete. Okay, somatic cells up here, skin, lung, heart, liver, stomach, intestinal. All of those are somatic cells. And then here are gametes, sperm or egg. Those are the only 2 gametes. Those have no pairs. All right, and this will lead us into the different types of reproduction. So there are 2 different ways that living things can reproduce. There is asexual reproduction, and then there is sexual reproduction. So let's talk first about asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is going to produce a genetically identical daughter cell. So we've already gone over an example of asexual reproduction, mitosis. Mitosis produces a clone, right? And therefore, mitosis is asexual reproduction. It's genetically identical. Bacteria asexually reproduce. They just kind of split in half and produce more. And the reason why asexual reproduction is good is because it's simple and it does not take a lot of energy. So if you need to reproduce quickly and you need to do it frequently, asexual reproduction is the easiest thing to do. right? Asexual reproduction is older. Very simple organisms, very old organisms can undergo asexual reproduction. So mostly bacteria. Sexual reproduction is different. Sexual reproduction produces genetically unique individuals. That's the opposite of a clone. Genetically unique. We're mixing up the DNA, we're making it different. Sexual reproduction is going to be different because it requires more energy, right? Think about plants. Plants have to produce pollen, and that pollen has to be dispersed into the air and it has to reach other plants. That's a lot of energy that the plant has to spend on sexual reproduction. Animals have to go and find a suitable mate. That's a lot of energy for sexual reproduction. They're not just splitting themselves in half to making a clone. So sexual reproduction requires a lot more time and a lot more energy. It's harder. So why would an organism reproduce? We're going to find that out in a moment. So here is asexual reproduction. I'll label this with an A. This is an amoeba simply splitting in half, making two cloned cells. Each of these daughter cells is identical to the first cell. And over here, the bee pollinating the flower. That is sexual reproduction because the bee is taking pollen from one plant and moving it over to the other plant. That's going to mix up the DNA of the plants and make the plants, the new seeds that are produced, genetically unique. But that requires some energy. Here is a sperm and an egg meeting to produce an embryo. Again, a lot of energy there. This one on the lower right is a hydra, which is a tiny little aquatic organism cloning itself by making a bud. That's the bud. The bud is a clone of the full-grown hydra, which is sort of like a jellyfish, and it is going to release and make a new clone, a new genetically identical individual somewhere else. So that is asexual reproduction. So if asexual reproduction produces individuals with minimal energy, why would anybody spend all this time on sexual reproduction? The key here is genetic variation. Genetic variation is the important piece, right? Why do we need genetic variation? We need genetic variation because a population of clones won't survive an environmental change. Think about what happens if you have a population that's genetically identical, it's clones. Every individual is the exact same. And what happens if a disease comes along and the disease wipes out one of the members of that population? Well, if they're all the exact same, what's probably going to happen? The entire population is probably going to get wiped out by that disease. So it's not something that is good. You want genetic variation because genetic variation ensures that those different individuals will respond differently to the disease and some will survive. So it prevents the elimination of a population due to disease. So that is why sexual reproduction is important. All right. So in terms of ourselves, we sometimes undergo asexual reproduction with mitosis. Your skin cells undergo mitosis, your stomach cells undergo mitosis, your liver cells occasionally undergo mitosis. That's asexual. It's simple, it's easy, it's fast, it's for growth, it's for repair, and it's only for your somatic cells. And the reason why that's important is because it results in two identical cells, right? Do you want each skin cell to have different DNA? No, that would be crazy, right? It all has to have the same DNA because it's all part of the same organism. Meiosis, on the other hand, is the term for the division of gametes or sex cells. That is going to produce genetically unique individuals. So meiosis produces sperm cells and egg cells, and that is the reason why children are going to be slightly different than their parents because of the process of meiosis. Meiosis gives us haploid cells that are genetically unique. And that is the key to meiosis. All right. Okay. And we have already gone over this. So that is where we are going to stop for right now. If you have any questions, please let me know.